Hey there, darlings. Welcome to the Farmer's Table. My name is Jess, and today I want to give you a handful of very easy ways to use fresh herbs. But first, we need to run out to the garden. So we've reached the time of year where all the perennial herbs are really starting to wake back up. Like right here, I have this really lovely big area of thyme. I harvested some marjoram, some sage. My rosemary is looking lovely. Let me be the cautionary tale that mint, when put in the ground, grows very aggressively, as does its cousin lemon balm. I've got both right here in the ground of what used to be a really lovely part of my cottage garden, and now it is completely covered in mint and lemon balm. However, I've been absolutely loving iced mint and lemon balm tea. I'll show you how to make it here in a second. So the downside is I no longer see all of the beautiful perennials that used to grow here, but the upside is I get a lot of tea, as much as I could possibly want. Now, unfortunately, during this time of year, I don't have all of my favorite herbs growing in the garden, one of which is basil. I absolutely adore basil, and I do have a few very small plants out, but it would not be beneficial for me to start harvesting. But I did grow this tray of basil microgreens. I'm gonna grab some of these also. I brought this jar out to put them in. I decided to come in and get a glass of that tea. I was thinking about it after mentioning it. It's my favorite thing to drink right now. And I'm almost out, so it's definitely time to make some more. Let's start with making herbal tea. Drinking herbal tea is nothing new. I don't think a lot of people realize how versatile it can really be. I think a lot of people think of it as drinking hot tea. Maybe they've had an experience with medicinal tea that did not seem to be an enjoyable thing to drink for them. I love medicinal teas, and that's a whole other world of uses for herbs. But even whenever your goal is not necessarily the medicinal benefit, when you're just trying to make a refreshing beverage, herbs still do have benefits. There's a really great website called plantsforafuture.org. I'll put a link to it down below. You can look up any number of plants on that site and look at what benefits those plants offer, and it will also show you if you have any sort of like medical concerns or medications or anything like that that you're concerned about drinking a large amount of any sort of herbal concoction. That website will also tell you if there's any concern. Today I have lemon balm and mint. I'm putting equal parts of those in a half-gallon mason jar. Now, if you've been here with me for very long, you have probably heard me mention in the summertime basil tea. I do have a video showing how to make that exact same process as this, but in that we're using different varieties of basil: cinnamon, lemon, sweet basil, Thai basil, blue spice basil. I want to grow all the basil so I can try all the different basil teas. It's wild how different the flavors can be. But here we're taking about between 1 cup and 2 cups of leaves. I think tea is just one of those things that people just have to develop their preference. But I typically want to fill my half-gallon jar up when it's loose like this about 1/3 of the way. That's about a packed cup of leaves. I just rinsed these herbs off in the sink. I didn't do anything extra special to get them clean. I just got them good and rinsed, and I didn't do anything to try to dry them because I'm about to steep them in water. I just use my kettle for this. If you need to heat the water on the stove, that's fine, but this is just convenient. You want to bring some water to a quick boil, and then put a lid on it, and we're gonna let it sit for about 20 or 30 minutes. So next we wanna put our desired amount of honey in the bottom of another half-gallon jar. You could do this in a pitcher too. This honey, I've got about 1/2 cup in here. It was crystallized, that's why it looks like that, which is fine. This is a great way to use crystallized honey because the heat of the brewed tea is going to melt it. This jar is hot. With the large leaves, it's not always necessary, but sometimes I make a mess here. I ended up with a few little bits of leaves in mine. You could avoid that if it mattered to you. All right, so we're gonna stir this and let the honey melt. As I said, I used 1/2 cup. You could do more than that or less depending on your preference. And then I want to do about a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. You don't have to do the lemon juice, but I really do think that it brightens it up in a really nice way and just adds another layer of just bright refreshment. Now, this tea is really good right now, hot. In fact, that sounds like a wonderful idea. Cheers. So good. The honey may settle back down to the bottom. Whenever you go to get this out of the fridge, just give it a good shake. You know how you go in fancy restaurants and they'll have like duck 2 ways. Tea 2 temperatures. I am the person that always has at least 3 beverages going at the same time, so this tracks. Next, herb compound butters. Compound butters are one of those things that just have no business being so good. If you want to elevate your cooking, or you want to do something that feels like extra special and fancy without really taking a lot of work, compound butter is definitely one of those things. I'm going to make 2 different kinds of compound butter today. I've got about 8 ounces of butter here, softened, so you want this to be at room temperature. Now right here I have some grated Parmesan cheese, some lemon zest, and these 2 are going to go with my basil. And then I've got some garlic, and that is going to go with my thyme and my marjoram. I'm going to take about half of this butter and put it on my cutting board. Put some of my cheese, lemon zest, and we're just gonna give these a little chop. They're already really small, so we don't really have to worry about that too much. Obviously, if this were full-size basil, I would just cut the leaves really thin. Okay, and we're gonna mix all of these together. Now this butter was already salted. Keep that in mind if you're using unsalted butter, that you may want to add some salt to it. So with the basil, lemon, Parmesan, this would be something that I would take a piece of like cooked whitefish and put this on top of that. Chicken added into a pasta. This is light, it's bright, and it's just gonna brighten up dishes while adding flavor. So just scrape that all off. And label it. I did wrap this multiple times so that there was no risk of my marker bleeding through for this purpose. I'm gonna start finally mincing some garlic. I've got a few cloves of garlic. I don't know, 3 may be enough for this small amount of butter. You know, I eat garlic like vampires are a real threat. So any sort of add-ins that we put in, we do want to make sure we chop them really small. Kind of the thing with compound butter is we want to be able to put it on whatever we're putting it on and have it melt and not leave any large chunky pieces of whatever's in it in our food. Now for the herbs that you're going to put in compound butter, when you wash these, you do want to make sure you get them very dry, because adding any sort of moisture in your butter is just going to make it spoil faster. So I just like to press them really good between a paper towel to make sure that I'm not putting water in. So I've got marjoram and thyme here. With thyme, I'm just going to strip the leaves off of the stems, and then I'm going to chop the marjoram. If you're not familiar with marjoram, I feel like marjoram is a lot better than it gets credit for. It's kind of like a milder oregano, and it's really great in any sort of Italian type blend. It pairs well with garlic. This is not the best knife for this, but it's the one I already had dirty. Will anybody else like use the wrong tool to keep from having to wash another dish? Just me. All right, time to mix. About a stick of butter, more or less. Flatten it out. So after the herb compound butters have chilled in the fridge, they'll solidify again and not be so soft, and you're able to unroll that little log and just slice it into these lovely little circular medallions. That garlic and herb one that I made second is great on a steak, when you like pan fry a steak or grill a steak, and just slice a couple of little medallions of that, put it on top to melt. So good. You can also go sweet with compound butters. They don't always have to be savory. So herbs mix well with sweet flavors too. So thyme with a little bit of honey, maybe some lemon zest, in a compound butter, you've got essentially a honey butter that's herbed that you can put on a biscuit or on a scone. Lavender makes a really lovely compound butter sweetened with honey for the exact same applications. Really, there are so many different options that you can use. Tarragon is a good one with shallots. Cilantro and lime to go in rice bowls. So many different things you can do with herbs and compound butter. Next, we're going to make herbed salt. I love salt. I love good salt. I have probably 6 different types of salt in this kitchen right now because I love what different salt can do for food. Today, I'm going to be using this kosher Celtic sea salt. You can use any salt for this. So I'm going to be putting a mix of different herbs in here. I'm going to put some marjoram, some thyme, rosemary, and some of my basil microgreens, and essentially just kind of make like an Italian-ish type salt. Oh, my favorite jars to do this in are these little short ones, just because I like to salt things like by pinching. I just have a better feel of how much I'm putting on my food rather than shaking it out. And so by making herbed salt in these jars, I can just open it and use it directly out of it. You can do whatever size though. And if you get these little tiny 4-ounce jars, this makes a really, really great gift. So there's not an exact measurement here, but I usually want to have at least like a few tablespoons of herb leaves. Now you can chop these up really fine if you want, or you can leave them larger. I actually like leaving them larger. Putting the fresh herbs in the salt, it's gonna pull the moisture out of the herbs. And what's gonna happen is as it pulls the moisture out of the herbs, it's actually going to actually infuse the salt with the flavor of the herbs. So when I cook with this, I'll be throwing the dried herb leaves that are in it into my food, but also the salt itself is gonna carry that flavor. Now, one thing you can do, if you wanna use a chunkier salt, you put whole herb leaves in. You can mix this in like a little grinder, but that's not super necessary. I'm trying to pick out the purple basil leaves just to add some color. So I'm just going to start filling this, and while I have space in the jar, I want to mix it up. Put the lid on. Oh, you know what I bet would be really good in this is some of this lemon zest. Should I do it? It's kind of limiting a little bit what I'm going to use it on, but I think I'm going to do it. Isn't that lovely? I just saw that lemon sitting there, only half zested. Couldn't waste the rest of it. This, all on a chicken. Cut the backbone out, spatchcock it, fry it breast side down, flip it over, roast in the oven until it's super crisp. Put some lemon juice in the pan. It's gonna be good. Let it sit for at least a week and then you're good to go. Next, we're gonna make some herb infused simple syrup. So in a pan, we want to combine sugar, water, and the herb of our choosing. Now, you can do this in a 1-to-1 ratio or a 1-to-2 ratio. Today I'm gonna do a cup of sugar, about a cup of water, and I'm gonna put in 4 or 5 rosemary sprigs. Obviously, it's gonna make it stronger if you use less water, and then you just use less of it in whatever application that you're going to use it in. So we're going to stir this as it comes to a simmer. And once, you don't have to boil it, but once it has come up to like a good simmer and all of your sugar is obviously fully melted and dissolved, we're just gonna turn the heat off and let it sit here on the stovetop to cool and infuse for about 15 to 30 minutes. My simple syrup has cooled down, and I'm gonna do something that's a little different. You don't have to do this. I have a couple of bottles here that had vanilla extract in them. I make vanilla extract. I have a video detailing that. Actually, that video is when I'm made these bottles. It was, at this point, I don't know, over a year ago that I made them. Now, I poured these 2 bottles into like my mother jar of vanilla extract. And sometimes I'll fish the beans out and throw it in the jar, but I decided to save them for another application, and this is what I had in mind. So these are spent vanilla beans, meaning they sat in liquor for a year to make true vanilla extract, but they still have flavor in them. So I'm actually going to pour my rosemary simple syrup into these jars. I'm just pouring them through a strainer and obviously the funnel. Now, after this sits in the fridge for the next day or so, I will have a really nice rosemary vanilla simple syrup. Oh, I'm so eager to try it. What do you say? Should we go for 3 beverages in this one video? This really isn't fully cold, so it's not like the best way to do this. And obviously it's gonna have more flavor after it's sat with those vanilla beans. But we're just gonna try it a little bit. So you can use herbed simple syrups a lot of different ways. At our coffee shop, we actually do seasonal flavors with herbed simple syrups. And so we do like lavender lattes and rosemary lattes. And if you're like, herbs in your coffee, that's weird, don't knock until you try it. It's not weird, it's so good. Of course, you can also use these simple syrups in making cocktails, thousands of different ways to do that. For rosemary, I bet this rosemary vanilla would be really good in an old fashioned. But one of my favorite things to do is put a little bit of simple syrup, or however much it is that you want to create your desired level of sweetness, in some soda water. And make a natural herb infused soda. That's good. I wish I could share it with you. I always feel so awkward trying things because I'm like, what am I supposed to do? You should believe me. It's really good, but it's so good that I want to dance. It's so good that I'm like, I really need you to try this so someone else can make a big deal out of this. I mean, obviously, I don't know if you'll have a vanilla bottle laying around, but you could just put a little bit of vanilla extract in your simple syrup. Wait until after it cools down some to do that. Or if you have a vanilla bean that you could split and put it on the front end when you put your rosemary in, you would end up with a very similar end product to this. Oh, my precious. It's so good. Now, the last way that we are going to use our herbs today is we're going to make some herb infused oil. Now, this is one case where you do need to use fully dried herbs, not just dried off after wash, like fully dried out. When it comes to drying herbs, you can use a dehydrator. If you have one, that's fine. You want to use it on the absolute lowest setting that it has. High heat can damage the compounds in herbs that do make them medicinally beneficial. So we always want to dry them on very low heat. I usually don't use a dehydrator whenever I dry herbs. I will just bundle them and hang them up on one of my shelves out of the way and let them hang there for a week or so until they're fully dry, and then crumble them up. These are actually freeze dried. I will freeze dry them occasionally. It is a great way to preserve flavor. And I'm going to take some of this freeze dried sage and put it in this jar. You can infuse any herb into oil as long as it's dry first. The reason you want it to be dry is to not risk moisture being in oil. Anytime you're putting anything that's moist in oil, there can be, risk of bacteria and stuff. But oil infused herbs are incredibly useful in so many different ways. I'll infuse things like chamomile or calendula into oils to use in skincare, in making salves and things like that. In the case of this sage, or if I had dried rosemary or dried thyme, any of the herbs that we're talking about today, or any herbs that you use, these can be drizzled over hummus or soft cheeses. They can be used to cook different things. My favorite way to use them is in making salad dressings. So you have options on what you want to do with this once it's set. We're going to pour oil over the top of our herbs, and I typically will put this somewhere where I'll see it. you're supposed to put it in like a dark, cool place, but if I do that, I'll forget that it exists. So I'm gonna let it sit out here on my counter so I can see it just kind of back over in the corner. You can strain it out after it's sat for a couple of weeks. 2 weeks, I would say, is probably like a good practice when you're trying to infuse things into oil. You see here, my sage in oil. Depends on what I'm using it for, whether I strain it out or not. So I don't typically get to like 2 weeks and say, okay, I'm gonna strain all of the herbs out of the oil so I can use the oil. I kind of will like just pull some of the oil off to use and leave the herbs in there. I do like to make this in smaller jars for that reason. I don't want to have like a big quart of oil sitting over here and not be able to get through it pretty quickly. But for making salad dressings, I'll take a whole scoop of the infused oil with the herbs out and add some vinegar and maybe just a little bit of splash of honey or maple and some salt, some pepper, and shake it up really good and make a really great vinaigrette. Saute potatoes in it for breakfast in the morning. And then of course you can drizzle it on just anything. I mean, as a finishing oil, like some fried eggs on toast, on roasted vegetables, or just a little drizzle on a salad. Well, here we have the beverages that I have enjoyed through the last couple hours of making this video. Lots of herby things. I hope that you guys will try these things. I hope you'll be empowered to use the fresh herbs you have coming out of your garden or fresh herbs that you're able to buy at the store or the market. I feel like all of the things that we made today, if you were to go purchase them, would be sold as like luxury items. Herbs are just elevated. They feel special. They feel fancy. It's not something that you see a lot of in fast food, in food that is not having a lot of time put in it. And they are one of the easier things to grow in a garden. I think that's a place where a lot of people start. So I would encourage you guys to get some herbs, make some lovely things, enjoy them thoroughly, and let me know what you think. Thank you for hanging out with me today and all the days you do. I bless you. Until next time.